Hi, BookTube. I had thought about making a video next week to kind of mark 1 month on BookTube, but then the more I thought about it, I realized that I could say pretty much all I had to say just at the beginning of this video. The main thing I wanted to say is that the biggest positive of being on BookTube and making these videos has been the way that it kind of narrows your focus when it comes to reading. In the months before I had started making videos, I had fallen into kind of a bad habit of, kind of like half-heartedly starting books and then getting 50 to 100 pages in and losing interest, or just, shelving them and not coming back to them. And the feeling that I couldn't ignore throughout all of that was, why am I reading this book when I have all these hundreds of other books that I could be reading? It's basically just paralysis by analysis, combined with just being in a standard reading slump. But when you're on BookTube and you're making videos, and then especially when you're making TBR type videos, it kind of holds you accountable. You're holding books up and saying, like, okay, I've got the book, I'm showing it to you, I'm telling you I'm going to read this. You feel committed to it, and it doesn't matter how many or how few subscribers you have. It does help to kind of narrow your focus on that one particular book. Anyway, I have what is maybe part one of a July TBR. I say part one because just this morning I got news about a project, about a work-related project that is probably going to keep me busy this month. So it's probable that these 5 books will make up all of my TBR for this month. But if not, I'll make a part 2 at the midway point of the month. And in that spirit of narrowing focus and committing to books, 4 of these books will be read as part of my first BookTube event, which is Michael K. Vaughan's Rocket Summer. I'll leave a link down to his channel below if you are somehow watching this channel and not also watching Michael K. Vaughan. The basic idea is just to read classic science fiction all throughout the month of July. But if you really want to play along, the rules are to read in the first week a piece of science fiction from before 1940, so from the 1930s all the way back to the origin of science fiction. Week 2, you read a work from the 1940s. Week 3, one from the 50s. Week 4, one from the 60s. For me, for week 1, I am reading a book that I myself am shocked that I have not read yet. Not only have I not read this book, I have never read this author. And this is The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. I've seen the movies, at least. I saw the Tom Cruise movie when I was a kid, and saw the 1950s Byron Haskin one quite a bit later. So I know the story, but I'm approaching Wells not quite knowing what to expect. From what I've read and heard about him, he is seen as being a cut or two above Poe and Lovecraft, just in terms of literary ability. So the idea of an imaginative science fiction author on the same level of Lovecraft, but a little less verbose, is very appealing. I'm hoping and assuming that I'm really going to like this. And then I'll have a huge body of work ahead of me still. And then for week 2, I have one of the most influential post-apocalyptic novels. I guess you could make the argument that Mary Shelley's The Last Man is even more influential just by virtue of being like 100 years older. But this was an influence on The Stand, I would imagine on I Am Legend, and then all the way up to 28 Days Later and like The Last of Us and all kinds of stuff. This is George R. Stewart's Earth Abides. The thing about this book and this author that I've always found kind of interesting, even not having read it, is that Stewart is not a science fiction author. And this is, to my knowledge, his only foray into science fiction. He was more like an academic writer. This almost on the same level of War of the Worlds is going to be checking off one of the big tentpole influential science fiction novels off my list. The 50s and 60s books are going to come from these giant sets from Library of America. I've read a little bit from the 60s set, but I have not read anything from the 50s. And this has, to be exact, this has Space Merchants, More Than Human, Long Tomorrow, The Shrinking Man, Double Star, The Star's My Destination, A Case of Conscience, Who, and The Big Time. And The Shrinking Man by Richard Matheson is the one that is calling me for whatever reason. I mean, it's probably because I've seen the movie. And then for week 4 from the 60s set, we have The High Crusade, we have Way Station, which I have read, Flowers for Algernon, which I've read, and Call Me Conrad, Past Master, Picnic on Paradise, Nova, and Imperio. And I'm thinking Nova because, as I understand it, Nova is kind of a action-packed space opera type story, and I would think after War of the Worlds, an alien invasion book, and then Earth Abides, post-apocalypse, and then The Shrinking Man, which, if the movie is any indication, is going to be kind of a downer. I will want something fun, and that's what it sounds like Nova is. And then on top of Rocket Summer, for my online book club, our theme has been short novels. Our previous choice was Shirley Jackson's We've Always Lived in the Castle, which I really enjoyed on the reread. And next up is Truman Capote's Breakfast at Tiffany's. I saw the movie years ago, and I'm curious to see how this differs. Because as far as I know, the movie did tone down the contents of the book in some ways. And I would imagine cut some things out completely, added some things in. It's always interesting to see this story that you're familiar with in one medium, and then finally go back to the source and see what they had to work with. The only other book I've read by Capote is In Cold Blood, which is great, but I would imagine this is going to be a big change of pace. That may be it for July. It may just be those 5 books, but if not, we will continue this TBR in about 2 weeks or so. So, thank you for watching.